He waited 22 minutes for a simple burger. Hot grease hissed behind the counter. The smell of fries and toasted buns filled the air. But when his order number was finally called, what happened next silenced the entire restaurant. "I don't serve animals," said the manager, his voice sharp enough to cut through the chatter. The sound echoed off the tiled walls. Then, with one swift motion, he grabbed the burger, still warm from the grill, and slammed it straight into the trash. The lid banged against the wall. The man who had ordered, a tired nurse just finishing a 12-hour hospital shift, froze. His hands, dark and calloused from years of service, trembled slightly. Not from fear, from humiliation, the manager sneered. "You people walk in here expecting equal treatment? Look around. Does this look like your kind of place?" He pointed to the nurse's skin, then waved toward the dining room packed with white customers pretending not to notice. No one spoke. No one stood up. Forks kept moving, eyes dropped to plates. The nurse blinked hard, swallowed, and turned away without a word. He walked out into the parking lot, his shoulders heavy, his hunger forgotten. What the manager didn't see was the phone camera in the corner booth. A young man sitting alone had caught everything. His name was Aaron Wells, and he wasn't just any customer. He was the founder and owner of that restaurant chain. The restaurant's name was Kind Bite. It had started as a dream, a small food truck built on one simple promise: good food, no barriers. Now that promise had been shattered under his own roof. Aaron sat frozen in that booth, staring at the phone still recording in his shaking hand. He couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. That hateful sentence, "I don't serve animals," had been spoken in his restaurant under his company's name by someone wearing his logo. Aaron stopped the recording. His fingers trembled as if trying to hold on to something that was slipping away. His values, his purpose, maybe even himself. He pushed the phone aside and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't random. It wasn't one bad manager having a bad day. He could feel it. This was deeper. This was a rot that had been growing inside his company while he wasn't looking. He needed air. He stood up, walked out through the same door the nurse had used, and looked at the sign above the restaurant. Kind Bite, where everyone belongs. It used to make him proud. Now it made him sick. 3 nights earlier, Aaron had been sitting in his home office at 3 a.m., staring at his computer screen, unable to sleep. Numbers and reports filled the monitor. 47 complaints in 3 months, all from the same branch, the Lakeside location, the one run by the man he had just watched throw away that burger. The complaints all said the same thing. "I felt unwelcome. They treated me like I didn't belong. White customers got better service. Your staff made me invisible." Then came the one that broke him. A woman had written, "I've been a regular for 2 years. Last month, your manager told me I'd be more comfortable eating somewhere else. I sat in my car and cried for 20 minutes before driving home. I'll never come back." Aaron had read that message 5 times, each one cutting deeper than the last. But the company metrics told a different story. Revenue up 18%. Customer satisfaction, 4.3 stars. Employee efficiency, excellent. And the manager responsible, Derek Hayes, was up for a bonus. It didn't make sense. Until he realized the truth. Derek had found a way to make racism profitable. At 5:42 a.m. the next morning, Aaron's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something told him to answer. "Mr. Wells?" a nervous female voice whispered. "Please don't hang up. I can't say my name. I work at the Lakeside branch. You need to know what's happening." Aaron sat up. "What's happening?" The woman hesitated. Her voice cracked. "Derek. He trains us to treat black customers differently. He calls it customer optimization, but it's racism. He has a system, codes, hand signals, even a notebook." Aaron felt the blood drain from his face. The voice continued faster now, like she was afraid someone might hear. "He makes us give them slower service. Bad attitude. Mess up their orders on purpose. He says if we do it right, those customers stop coming back. He calls it filtering the crowd." Aaron's heart pounded. "Do you have proof?" "Only what I've seen. But if anyone finds out I called, I'll lose my job. I have a daughter. Please, Mr. Wells, you built this company on kindness. You need to stop him." "Wait, what's your name?" he asked. But the line went dead. Aaron sat there in the dark, phone pressed to his chest, staring into nothing. 15 years ago, he had been a young dreamer with a food truck and a paintbrush. He'd written "Kind Bite" on the side with his own hands. His first customer, an old man with a smile, had said, "You treat everyone the same, son." "That's rare." Aaron had replied, "That's the whole point." Now, with 12 restaurants and $8 million in annual revenue, he realized he had no idea what was really happening inside them. Somewhere along the way, his dream had grown, but his heart had stayed behind. That morning, he opened his closet and reached for something he hadn't worn in years. His old Kind Bite hoodie. It was faded, torn, and still smelled faintly of grilled onions and rain. He slipped it on. Then he rubbed dirt on his sneakers, took off his expensive watch, and looked at himself in the mirror. He no longer looked like a CEO. He looked like a man Derek Hayes would ignore. And that was exactly what he needed. He got in his car and drove toward the lakeside branch. As the sun rose, painting the sky orange, Aaron felt something harden inside him. He was done hiding behind numbers and reports. It was time to see the truth with his own eyes. Because somewhere inside that restaurant, his dream was being used as a weapon, and he was about to find out just how deep the damage went. The lunch rush had already begun when Aaron pulled into the parking lot of the lakeside Kind Bite. Cars filled nearly every spot. Through the glass windows, he could see customers lined up at the counter, chatting, laughing, scrolling through phones. On the surface, everything looked normal. He took a deep breath, slipped his phone into his hoodie pocket, and walked inside. The bell above the door jingled. No one looked twice at him. Just another tired worker in a faded hoodie and dusty shoes. He took a seat in the corner booth, the same one he'd sat in when he filmed the burger being thrown away the day before. The same corner where his dream had cracked. He ordered nothing at first. He just watched. It didn't take long to see it. The system wasn't hidden. It was right there in plain sight. White customers got greeted with bright smiles, fast typing on the screens, quick orders, quick food. Black customers, though, they waited. They were told the system's loading or we're backed up. Aaron noticed the taps on the counter, 2 quick ones. Every time Derek did that, the cashier's pace slowed. Every time Derek gave a single tap, things moved normally. It was a rhythm of discrimination, played like music only the employees could hear. At 12:03, a young black woman in a blue blazer stepped up to register 3. Her name tag read "Visitor" from a nearby law office. She smiled politely. "Hi, can I get the grilled chicken sandwich combo, no onions, please?" The cashier, a teenage boy named Jordan, nodded, entered the order but froze when Derek appeared behind him. 2 taps on the counter. Jordan swallowed hard. "Sorry, ma'am, the system's lagging a bit." "Just a moment." 2 minutes later, a white man in a gray suit ordered the same thing at the next register. No delay. His receipt printed instantly. Aaron looked at the wall clock. 12:01. The woman was still waiting. 12:08. The white man already had his food. Hot and steaming. 12:19. The woman's number was finally called. Aaron watched as she checked her bag. Her face fell. The sandwich was cold, the bun stiff. It was also covered in onions. She glanced at Derek, who smirked like it was a private joke. She didn't complain. She just left. Aaron's stomach turned. He knew what he was looking at now wasn't just bias. It was a system. A carefully rehearsed coded cruelty. He watched Derek pull a small black notebook from under the register. Derek opened it, jotting something down quickly. Aaron leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Each entry had strange shorthand marks, letters and times. S15, P10, CW, SP. Everyone matched the rhythm of the orders. Aaron realized what they meant. S for slow, P for priority, slow for certain customers, priority for others. He wanted to stand up and rip that notebook away, but not yet. He needed more proof. A few minutes later, a new employee arrived. A nervous teenager in a bright red apron. His name tag said Eli. Derek met him near the soda machine. "Customer service is about efficiency," Derek said, his tone slick and practiced. "Some customers show respect. They get priority, fast, friendly, fresh. The ones who act entitled from bad neighborhoods, you know the type. We slow them down. Be polite, but don't waste energy on them, got it?" Eli frowned. "But how do I know who's who?" Derek smiled, an oily, cruel smile. "You'll know. Just watch me." Aaron's jaw clenched. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. Then Derek's tone changed, low and venomous. We're not breaking any laws. We're maintaining standards. Collins might have built this brand, but he doesn't understand what kind of people ruin a restaurant. We keep them out quietly. That's how real business works. Hearing his own name on Derek's tongue made Aaron's stomach twist. The man was bragging about running a racist system under his nose. He turned his phone camera on, pretending to scroll through messages, and recorded every word. The day dragged on. Aaron watched dozens of orders. The pattern never broke. Black customers waited longer. Their food sat cooling under heat lamps while white customers smiled and left with hot meals. Then an older man walked in, late 60s, wearing a faded veteran's cap. His limp was slow and heavy, his face tired. He stepped to the counter and asked softly, "Can I get the cheeseburger combo, please?" Derek appeared before he even finished. "We're out of most items." 20-minute wait. "Maybe try somewhere else," the man blinked. "But you're serving everyone else." "Your choice," Derek snapped. The veteran looked around the restaurant, saw white families eating, saw what was really happening, and quietly left. Aaron's hands curled into fists under the table. Not because of anger, because of shame. That veteran had probably saved lives. And now he'd been told he wasn't good enough to eat at Kindbite. Something broke inside Aaron. The kind of break that doesn't heal with time. The kind that turns pain into action. He stood up, walked straight to register 3 and looked Jordan in the eye. "Cheeseburger combo. Medium soda," Jordan froze. His eyes flicked toward Derek, 2 taps. "Slow down." Jordan's hands trembled. "That'll be $8.50, sir." Aaron handed him a 10. Jordan whispered, "Sorry, kitchen's backed up." 10 to 12 minutes, Aaron looked to his left. A white couple who had ordered moments after him were already eating. He turned back. "Is it always this slow?" Jordan's throat bobbed. He leaned forward, voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I need this job." 5 words that carried a lifetime of weight. Aaron's chest tightened. "Not your fault," he said softly. "I see you." Jordan's eyes filled, and he nodded quickly before turning away. 15 minutes later, Aaron's order was ready. Cold fries, lukewarm burger. No pickles, even though he had asked for extra. A deliberate insult served in a paper bag. He took one bite, just to remember what his customers had been forced to feel. Then he reached for his phone. "Security," he said quietly. "I need every piece of footage from the last 6 months at the Lakeside branch. Employee schedules, complaint logs, Derek Hayes' records. Do it quietly. No one must know." When he hung up, he looked around the restaurant one last time. Every smile now looked fake. Every detail reeked of decay. He had seen enough. But tomorrow, Derek would see something too. The end of his empire of cruelty. And Kindbite would remember its name. As Aaron walked out into the afternoon heat, one thought echoed in his mind like a promise. No dream built on unity deserves to rot in silence. Tomorrow he would return, not as a stranger, not as a ghost, but as justice itself. That night, Aaron didn't go home. He parked across the street from the Lakeside Kindbite, engine off, lights dim. The restaurant glowed faintly through the glass, a stage of hypocrisy that wore his dream like a mask. Inside, the pattern repeated even with a smaller dinner crowd. It was worse when fewer people were around. Derek felt bolder then, crueler. The room buzzed with quiet fear. A young black father came in with his daughter, maybe 6 years old, holding her teddy bear. She looked around the restaurant with wide eyes, smiling at the smell of fries. The father ordered politely, thanked the cashier, then waited. Minutes stretched. Derek watched from near the kitchen. 2 taps. "Slow down." The little girl's smile faded. She tugged on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, why are they eating and we're not?" she asked, pointing at another family who had ordered after them. Her father forced a smile. "Maybe ours is still cooking, sweetie." When their order came, it was wrong. Cold nuggets, stale fries, flat soda. The man said nothing. He just nodded, picked up his tray, and left. The teddy bear dragged on the floor behind them. Aaron's throat burned. His hand trembled as he pressed record on his phone again. He didn't need any more proof of Derek's system. But this wasn't about proof anymore. It was about conscience. About the sickness spreading through something he had built to be good. He stayed until the crowd thinned to a few tables. Employees moved like shadows, careful not to cross Derek's path. Aaron noticed how they flinched when he walked past. He wasn't just tormenting customers. He was suffocating his own staff. At 7:13 p.m., Aaron stood and walked toward the restrooms. As he passed the break room, he heard voices. He paused. The door was slightly open. "I can't keep doing this," said Jordan. "Every time I make someone wait because Derek tells me to, I feel like I'm betraying myself." A woman's voice replied, low and tired. "You think I don't feel that too? My son asked me why I cry before work. What am I supposed to tell him? That his mom spends 40 hours a week pretending some people don't deserve kindness." Aaron leaned closer. His chest felt heavy. These were his employees. His family, Jordan sighed. "I tried talking to Derek once. You know what he said?" He smiled and told me, "Want me to write you up for insubordination? You'll never get another job with that on your record." Like he was doing me a favor. The woman sniffled. "He's untouchable. Corporate doesn't care. They send the complaints to Derek to handle. I saw him throw a whole stack away last week. Said if people don't like it, they can eat somewhere else." Aaron's pulse roared in his ears. 47 complaints. He thought they'd been handled. Derek had buried them. He stepped back from the door, trying to breathe. The voices continued, soft but trembling. "Someone's going to stop him eventually," Jordan said. "Who?" the woman replied bitterly. "The owner? He doesn't even know we exist." The words hit Aaron harder than any insult ever could. He had built this company to make people feel seen, and now his own employees felt invisible. He walked into the restroom and locked the stall, gripping the sides of the sink until his knuckles whitened. He stared at his reflection. The hoodie, the dirt, the exhaustion. Somewhere along the road to success, he had forgotten how to look. He whispered, "No more." At 8:06, as he walked back toward the dining area, Derek's voice carried from the back door. Aaron stopped, keeping to the shadows. Derek stood outside on his phone, cigarette glowing in the dark. "I'm telling you, it works," Derek said. "Mariner branch numbers are up 12% since they started using the system. Corporate doesn't track service time by customer type, so they'll never notice. All they see is revenue up, complaints down. We're curating the customer base." Aaron's stomach clenched. Curating. Like people were inventory to be sorted. The voice on the other end replied faintly, and Derek laughed. "Exactly. No paper trail. All verbal. Hand signals, codes, notes in my personal book. Collins, he's clueless. Too busy playing CEO to notice what's happening on the floor. He thinks kindness sells. I know better." He paused to flick ash from his cigarette. "We'll expand to the other stores by next quarter. Greg's already training the managers in Mariner and Oak Hill. Same system, same results. He calls it operational efficiency. It's genius. They'll never trace it." Aaron felt cold spread through his chest. Greg, his regional manager. The man he'd promoted for his leadership. It wasn't one bad manager anymore. It was a network. Derek's voice lowered again. "I'll send Greg my notes. We'll standardize it. The right customers stay. The wrong ones disappear. Collins will think we're heroes. We might even get bonuses." Aaron turned away before he could hear more. His heart thundered with rage, but his steps were calm, precise. He knew now exactly what he was dealing with. A system of corruption built on his name. He waited until closing time. One by one, employees clocked out and left, their faces pale and tired. Derek locked the doors, laughing into his phone again. Aaron followed him in his car, keeping distance. Derek drove to a small diner a few miles away. Aaron parked across the lot, engine silent. A few minutes later, another car pulled up, a silver Lexus. The man who stepped out was Greg. The two shook hands and headed inside. Aaron grabbed his phone and followed. He slid into a booth near the back, a newspaper propped in front of him. He pressed record again. Derek pulled a notebook from his jacket and slid it across the table. Greg opened it, grinning. 18 months of data. You're efficient. Customer cycle time down 8%. Complaint rate from priority demographics down 15. You've weaponized efficiency. Derek chuckled. Exactly. And Collins hasn't got a clue. Greg nodded. This system belongs in every store. Mariner's running at Oak Hill next week, the rest soon after. And the employees who complain? Derek asked. Greg's face hardened. Cut their hours until they quit. If they still don't, write them up. Make them want to leave. No paper trails. Aaron's blood boiled. They weren't just discriminating, they were destroying lives to protect it. Greg continued. There's a kid at Lakeside, Jordan, too soft. Gave a black customer extra fries last week. Said he felt bad. Derek smirked. I saw that. Thought it was funny. Cut him to 15 hours, Greg said coldly. If he doesn't quit in 2 weeks, terminate him. We can't have weak links, that was enough. Aaron's hand shook, but he kept filming. When they finally stood to leave, he slipped out quietly. Outside, he leaned against his car, gasping for air like he'd been underwater for hours. He had enough. Enough to burn their entire conspiracy down. At 12:44 a.m., he called his lawyer, Patricia Cole, who answered on the first ring. I have them, he said, voice shaking. Video, audio, the whole thing. Discrimination, retaliation, a plan across multiple stores. She paused. Then tomorrow morning you end it. He nodded even though she couldn't see. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., Lakeside. Every employee, every truth. We're burning the rot out from the inside. Aaron looked at the diner one last time. Inside, Derek and Greg were still laughing. They didn't know the clock on their empire had already started ticking. 7 hours left. By morning, they'd lose everything, and Kindbite would reclaim its soul. The sky was still dark when Aaron parked in front of the Lakeside Kindbite again. The air was cold enough to sting, but inside him burned something steady and bright. He had spent the last few hours at headquarters gathering everything, the videos, the audio, the notebook, the messages from his lawyer. All of it lined up like proof in a trial waiting for Judgment Day. At 5:42 a.m., Patricia arrived, stepping out of her car with 2 thick briefcases and a look that said she'd been awake all night too. Everything's ready, she said. Security will be here in 3 minutes. By 5:50, the first employees began to trickle in. Jordan, pale and nervous, holding a coffee cup in both hands. Then the cook, the shift leader, the drive-through worker, one by one. They whispered to each other, confused, anxious. They had been told there was a mandatory meeting. None of them knew what kind. At 5:59, a black pickup pulled into the lot. Derek stepped out, phone in hand, sunglasses on despite the darkness. He looked irritated, not worried. Another audit, he thought. Another chance to impress corporate with numbers he'd faked. He walked in like he owned the place. Then Aaron followed him through the door. He was still wearing his construction clothes, the faded vest, the paint-stained jeans, the dirt under his nails. Derek turned, sneer-ready. Sir, we're closed for a meeting. You'll have to leave. Aaron set his worn backpack on the counter, unzipped it, and took out an old laminated badge. My name is Aaron Wells, he said quietly. I founded Kindbite 15 years ago. The room went silent. Jordan's coffee slipped from his hand and hit the floor. Derek froze, color draining from his face. Aaron looked straight at him. Yesterday I ordered a burger at Register 3. You threw a man's meal in the trash and called him an animal. You humiliated customers, trained children to discriminate, and built an empire of cruelty inside my company. You turned kindness into poison. Derek's mouth opened, then closed. His eyes darted toward the door. Aaron pulled his phone from his pocket and pressed play. Greg's voice filled the air, clear and unmistakable. You've weaponized efficiency. Collins doesn't have a clue. Gasps rippled through the employees. Patricia stepped forward, holding documents, her expression cold and sharp. We have recordings, surveillance footage, and witness statements, she said. 18 months of discrimination. 53 customer complaints destroyed. Retaliation against employees. It's all here. Aaron turned the phone toward Derek. You told Greg to cut Jordan's hours because he showed compassion. You said he's too empathetic. You plan to ruin his career for giving someone extra fries. Jordan's chest heaved. He looked at Derek, eyes wet with disbelief. You were really going to do that? Derek tried to laugh. You can't prove any of this. Those recordings could be fake. You can't fire me without due process. Aaron took out the black notebook and dropped it on the counter. It hit with a heavy thud that made everyone flinch. This is your handwriting, he said. S for slow. P for priority. Every entry matches service logs. Every delay timed. Every insult documented. Derek's face twisted. Those are just efficiency codes. No, Aaron said quietly. They're evidence of a hate machine you built in my house. Patricia opened one of the briefcases and pulled out a thick envelope. Derek Hayes, she said. You are terminated effective immediately for gross misconduct, systemic discrimination, and destruction of company property. Security will escort you off the premises. Two guards stepped forward. Derek looked around the room for allies, but found none. The employees stared at him, not angry, just hollow. He had drained too much from them for too long. "You'll regret this," he spat. Aaron's voice stayed calm. "No, I regret that I ever trusted you. Get out of my restaurant." Derek's jaw tightened. He grabbed his coat, shoved past the guards, and disappeared through the back door. The room stayed silent long after he was gone. Finally, Jordan spoke, voice trembling. "Is this real?" Aaron nodded. "It's real, and I owe all of you an apology." He sat down at one of the tables, not behind the counter, not above them, but among them. "I built this company on a promise to serve every person with dignity. But somewhere along the way, I disappeared into spreadsheets and forgot what kindness feels like on the floor. That's my failure." The employees listened in stunned quiet. "You were forced to follow rules that broke your hearts just to keep your jobs," he continued. "You cried in your cars. You whispered apologies you should never have had to make. That ends today." The woman from the break room, her name was Tanya, covered her face with her hands and began to cry. "We wanted to tell someone," she said, "but no one believed us. We thought nobody cared." Aaron leaned forward. "You can believe me now, because I'm not leaving this floor again." He stood and picked up a tablet from his bag. "Starting today, these are the changes." The TV screen behind the counter flickered to life. A document appeared. "Kind Bite Anti-Discrimination Policy 2.0. Anonymous hotline. Goes directly to my phone and an independent ethics firm," Aaron said. "No managers, no middlemen. Second, mandatory bias training for every manager every quarter. Third, service time audits by demographic. Every discrepancy will trigger an investigation." Murmurs filled the room. Tanya wiped her eyes. "Fourth," Aaron said, "employee protection. If you report discrimination, you can't be fired, demoted, or lose hours. That's written into your contracts. Anyone who retaliates pays a $50,000 penalty and loses their job." A breath of relief spread across the room, quiet, but real. "Fifth," he said, his voice steady, "Greg Hamilton has been terminated. Effective immediately." The employees exchanged shocked glances. Aaron looked at Jordan. "And sixth, promotion from within. People who showed integrity when it cost them." He walked over, handed Jordan a white envelope. "Open it." Jordan's fingers shook as he tore it open. His lips moved silently as he read, then his eyes widened. "Assistant manager." Aaron smiled softly. "You stood up quietly in the middle of cruelty. You did the right thing when you could have looked away. That's leadership." Tears filled Jordan's eyes. "I don't know if I'm ready." Aaron put a hand on his shoulder. "Neither was I. Caring is enough to start." For the first time, there was a flicker of warmth in the room, a fragile kind of hope. Aaron lifted the black notebook from the counter and held it up. This book documented 18 months of hate. "It ends now, Jordan." Jordan took the notebook. He looked at it for a long moment, then dropped it into the trash can. The sound was small, but it echoed through the room like thunder. Someone began to clap. Then another. Then everyone. The applause wasn't for Aaron, it was for themselves. For surviving. For finally being seen. When it faded, Aaron raised his hands. "One more thing," he said. "I'm done managing from an office. From now on, I'll visit every store myself. No schedules. No warnings. I'll work registers, take orders, talk to customers. You'll see me here, not in some tower." He handed out printed policies. "My cell number's on the last page. If anything like this ever happens again, you call me directly. Day or night," they nodded. Some smiled. Others simply looked stunned. Aaron checked the clock. "We open in 40 minutes. Let's make today the day Kind Bite remembers who it is." He looked at Jordan. "Your running point. I'll work register too." Jordan grinned weakly. "Yes, sir," Aaron smiled back. "Not sir, partner." The team straightened their aprons. Someone turned on the lights. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, and for the first time in months, that restaurant felt alive again. By the time the doors opened at 7, the fear that had haunted the place had been replaced by something new, hope, steady and bright, like the sunrise creeping through the glass. The morning rush came like a test. Aaron stood at register 2, side by side with Jordan, his hands clumsy at first but steadying as the rhythm returned. The sound of sizzling grills, paper bags crinkling, and laughter from the kitchen made him feel something he hadn't in years, alive on the floor where it all began. Customers streamed in. Different faces, different colors, one line. No codes, no delays, no whispers. Everyone served with the same respect. Every smile was genuine. Every thank you was real. Around noon, a familiar face stepped up to the counter, a middle-aged woman in a green cardigan. She hesitated before speaking. "I used to come here every week," she said softly. "Stopped a while back." "Things felt different," Jordan smiled. "They're different again, ma'am. For the better." She nodded, ordered her meal, and watched him work. Fast, precise, kind. When he handed her the bag, steam rising from the fries, her eyes shone. "You fixed it," she whispered. Aaron watched her walk to a booth and take her first bite. The smallest smile spread across her face. He didn't need numbers or charts to measure success anymore. Just that smile. The days that followed moved fast. Word spread through town about the change. People who had stopped coming started to return. Others came just to see if the rumors were true. The Lakeside Kind Bite began to fill again, not because of marketing, but because dignity had come back to the menu. But for Aaron, the work was only beginning. He knew Derek and Greg's system had spread beyond Lakeside. The recordings proved it, so he started driving. Every morning before sunrise, he chose a different branch, dressed like an ordinary worker, and showed up unannounced. The first visit was to the Mariner store 40 miles away. It was quieter there, newer, with polished tables and corporate posters on every wall. Yet something felt wrong the moment he walked in. A young man behind the counter served customers with robotic precision. Smile, order, receipt, next. But when a black couple approached, Aaron saw it again. The hesitation, the tap on the counter, the stall. He didn't interrupt. He ordered a meal, ate in silence, and watched. Later, he pulled the manager aside. "How long have you been doing the tap system?" The man froze, color draining from his face. I don't know what you mean." Aaron held his gaze. "You do. I built this company. I know what I'm seeing." The manager's eyes dropped. "Greg said it was part of efficiency training. He said it came from corporate." "It didn't," Aaron said quietly, "and it ends now." By the next morning, that manager was gone. Every employee at that branch received the new training policy, and the tap system was buried for good. The same thing happened at Oak Hill and then at Roseland. Every visit revealed another layer of the rot Greg and Derek had built. And every visit, Aaron tore it out root by root. But it wasn't just about firing people anymore. He started something new, listening sessions. Each night he sat with employees in the empty dining rooms and asked them what kindness meant to them. At first they were shy, unsure if they could speak freely. Then slowly stories poured out. Stories of fear, regret, survival. One cashier said, "When Derek ran things, I used to go home and wash my hands until they hurt. I felt dirty for what I'd done." Another said, "And we stopped seeing people. We just saw categories." Aaron never interrupted. He listened, every word sinking deep. One night after the last story ended, he said quietly, "We can't rewrite the past, but we can decide what happens next." He launched new initiatives, anonymous feedback lines, pay raises tied to empathy scores, scholarships for employees studying social work and ethics. It wasn't about image. It was about rebuilding trust from the inside out. 3 weeks after Derek's firing, Lakeside felt unrecognizable. The laughter had returned, light and unforced. Employees looked customers in the eye again. The smell of fresh coffee filled the mornings, and for the first time in years, Aaron saw his slogan, "Where everyone belongs," finally mean something again. One afternoon, as he wiped down a counter beside Jordan, a car pulled into the parking lot. A silver sedan. The door opened and an older man stepped out in hospital scrubs, moving with quiet grace. The nurse from that first day. The one Derek had called an animal. Aaron froze. The world seemed to hold its breath as the man walked through the door. The noise of the restaurant dimmed. He looked around, hesitant at first, then saw the new poster by the counter. The Kind Bite Promise. We serve every person with respect. No exceptions. He smiled faintly and stepped forward. "Can I get the cheeseburger combo?" he asked. Jordan didn't hesitate. "Of course, sir. Coming right up." 4 minutes later, the burger was fresh off the grill, the fries golden and hot. The man opened the bag, looked at his food, then at Aaron, who had come to stand quietly beside him. Recognition flickered in the man's eyes. "You were there, weren't you?" Aaron nodded. "Yes, sir. And I'm sorry for what happened. The man studied him for a long moment, then nodded. You fixed it, Aaron's throat tightened. Not completely. But we're trying, the nurse smiled. That's all it takes to start. He reached out his hand, and Aaron shook it firmly. As he walked away, Aaron watched him go with something heavy and bright in his chest. A weight of guilt mixed with a strange kind of peace. He turned to Jordan. That was him, the man Derek humiliated. Jordan's voice was soft. Looks like he finally got what he deserved. Aaron nodded. So did we. From that day forward, Aaron visited a different branch every week, sometimes in disguise, sometimes openly. Each time he left, something changed. People began to believe again, not in corporate slogans, but in kindness as a daily act. Kind bite was healing, slowly, honestly. But one afternoon, as Aaron sat reviewing reports in his booth, his phone buzzed. 7 new messages from the anonymous hotline. He opened them one by one. Manager at Mariner, treating certain customers differently. Again. Decatur branch telling us to prioritize white customers. Roseland threatening to cut hours if we talk about discrimination. Aaron felt the chill return. The work wasn't over. He looked across the room at Jordan, who was restocking cups with steady hands and a quiet pride. Clear your schedule next week, Aaron said. Jordan blinked. Why? We're going to Mariner, Aaron said. Undercover, Jordan grinned, a mix of fear and fire. Just like before? Aaron nodded. Exactly like before. It's time to finish what we started. The light outside dimmed as evening settled, but inside the restaurant the glow was warm and steady. The fight wasn't over, but this time Aaron wasn't fighting alone. The following week, the morning air carried a chill that felt heavier than usual. Aaron sat in his car outside the Mariner branch, the same way he had once watched Lakeside. The building looked clean, ordinary, even welcoming. But he knew better now. He knew that cruelty often hid behind polished glass. Jordan sat in the passenger seat beside him, tying his work boots with shaking hands. Feels strange coming here like this, he said quietly. Like walking into someone else's lie. Aaron nodded. That's exactly what we're doing. But this time, we're walking in together. They stepped out wearing the plain uniforms of maintenance contractors, carrying toolboxes instead of briefcases. Inside, the restaurant hummed with lunch hour noise. The line moved briskly. Everything looked perfect. Almost too perfect. Aaron scanned the floor. A man with slick hair and an expensive watch stood near the counter, chatting with the staff. The name tag on his chest read Martin, the new manager Greg had appointed months before. Martin laughed too loudly, smiled too wide, and clapped employees on the shoulder in a way that made them flinch. When a white family approached, his energy brightened. Welcome to Kind Bite. Let's get you taken care of right away. Then a black teenager stepped up to the next register. The rhythm changed. Slower typing, hesitant tone. Martin's expression cooled. Aaron felt his stomach knot. The disease hadn't died. It had just adapted. He and Jordan moved toward a corner booth and began pretending to check the air vents. Aaron turned on his phone's recorder again. Martin leaned over to the cashier. Don't rush certain orders. Prioritize regulars, he muttered, using the same coded language Derek had perfected. The cashier nodded nervously, glancing toward Aaron and Jordan. After 20 minutes, the pattern was undeniable. The bias, the hand signals, the fake excuses, it was the same rot, hiding behind new smiles. Aaron exchanged a look with Jordan. It's still here, Jordan whispered. Not for long, Aaron said. They stayed all afternoon, collecting every word, every signal, every delay. Then, as the dinner rush began, they slipped out quietly and drove straight to headquarters. By midnight, Patricia was sitting across from Aaron's desk, headphones in, listening to the recordings. When they ended, she leaned back, her voice sharp as glass. It's the same system. Different names, same playbook. Derek's legacy. Aaron rubbed his temples. We're going to end it everywhere, permanently, she nodded. Then we go public. The next morning at 6 a.m., Aaron called an emergency summit. All regional managers, all store leaders, every single one of them summoned to headquarters. He stood at the front of the auditorium, tired but certain, his presence quiet and heavy. Behind him on the screen played the proof. Derek's slurs, Greg's conspiracy, Martin's coded orders. The room fell into stunned silence. Aaron looked out at the faces before him. Some ashamed, some angry, some afraid. This, he said, gesturing to the screen, is what happens when leadership disappears. When profits start to matter more than people. He stepped forward. If you think this company will ever again reward cruelty, you can leave now. But if you believe that decency and fairness are worth fighting for, stay. No one moved. Then slowly hands began to rise. One by one people stood. The sound of chairs sliding back filled the hall, quiet but powerful. Aaron nodded once. Then help me fix it. What followed was months of rebuilding. Old policies torn apart and rewritten. Managers replaced. Training restructured from the ground up. Anonymous audits became routine. Employees started leading workshops, teaching each other empathy, storytelling, patience. And this time the change stuck. By summer, Kind Bite's name was everywhere again, but for the right reasons. News outlets covered how the company had faced its own corruption and rebuilt from within. Customers returned in waves, not for fast food, but for what the brand had come to represent, a promise kept. 6 months later, on a warm afternoon, Aaron walked into the lakeside branch with no disguise. No agenda, just to see. The place buzzed with life. Children laughed. Music played softly through the speakers. A mixed crowd filled every booth. He saw Tanya at the counter, training a new hire with a grin. Jordan, now wearing a manager's badge, stood near the register, calm and confident, calling orders with ease. Aaron ordered a simple meal, the same as before. A cheeseburger combo, medium soda. When Jordan handed him the bag, hot and perfect, he smiled. Still checking quality, boss? Aaron laughed quietly. Something like that. He sat in his old booth, unwrapping the burger slowly. The smell, the warmth, the familiar taste, it all felt new again. Around him, conversations hummed like harmony. No fear, no hesitation. Just life. As he ate, the door opened. The nurse, Mr. Carter, walked in, holding a to-go coffee from the hospital. He waved at Aaron before joining the line. A moment later, Tanya greeted him with a cheerful, "Good morning, hero." Aaron looked at the wall behind the counter. There hung a new sign framed in silver. The Kind Bite Pledge. We see every customer. We serve every customer. We respect every customer. No exceptions. He leaned back, eyes stinging. The words weren't just decoration anymore. They were alive. Jordan came over and sat across from him. You know, there's something my mom said once, he said. She told me, you can't fix the whole world, but you can make your corner of it kinder. Aaron smiled. Looks like you've done that. Jordan shook his head. We did it. They sat there in the soft hum of laughter and clinking cups. For a moment, Aaron saw the entire journey like scenes from a distant dream. The first food truck. The first smile, the fall, the rot, and finally, the rise. He stood to leave, handing Jordan his receipt. Keep this place honest, he said. Always, Jordan replied. As Aaron walked toward the door, sunlight spilled through the windows, bright and forgiving. He paused, hand on the handle, and looked back one last time. Every table full. Every face different. Every customer treated the same. That was the dream he had built, broken and rebuilt again. And for the first time in a long time, Aaron Wells didn't feel like a CEO. He felt like a man who had finally come home.